This chart shows the top 3 proven oil reserves on the planet. Up here are Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, and sitting comfortably in the third largest spot, holding over 170 billion barrels, is Canada. Looking at these numbers, you would naturally assume Canada operates a self-contained, highly lucrative energy empire, exactly like the Saudis. The actual data tells a more complicated story. Despite pulling enough volume to be the 4th largest oil producer globally, Canada exports nearly all of that wealth as unrefined, raw crude, and then actually imports the finished petroleum products its citizens use every day. Research carried out by Major retired Tariq Mahmoud reveals why this happens. Canada isn't mismanaging its immense resources. Rather, it operates inside a highly efficient, externally dependent system. The movement of this energy is dictated by 2 very stubborn physical realities: the chemical makeup of the dirt it sits on, and the permanent steel infrastructure it has built to move it. This is the source of the wealth, the Alberta oil sands. The crude here does not shoot out of the ground as a free-flowing liquid. It is bitumen, a thick, heavy, sticky substance mixed with sand and clay. Getting bitumen out of the earth requires intensive open-pit mining or injecting high-pressure steam deep underground. It demands a massive amount of upfront capital, heat, and water just to separate the crude from the soil. Compare that extraction process to a producer like Saudi Arabia, where light, conventional crude is easily pumped from a favorable desert climate directly into domestic refineries. Because Canadian bitumen is so heavy, turning it into usable gasoline requires specialized, incredibly complex facilities. Building new domestic refineries to handle this exact chemical composition would cost billions of dollars and carry a massive investment risk. Facing those immense upfront extraction costs, the local industry is economically cornered. To make the math work, Canada has to outsource the expensive refining process to an external partner. You cannot move billions of barrels of heavy crude efficiently by truck. The only viable transport method is a massive, permanent network of pipelines. When you map the major arteries like the Enbridge Main Line and the Keystone System, the pipes almost exclusively run in one direction, flowing directly south out of Alberta and straight into the central and southern United States. They terminate at sprawling, highly specialized refining complexes located along the U.S. Gulf Coast, which were built specifically to process this kind of heavy crude. This creates strict mutual interdependence. Canada gets a guaranteed buyer to process its oil without having to build its own multi-billion-dollar refineries. The trade-off is that with only one major customer easily accessible by pipe, Canadian producers must sell their crude at a significant discount. The permanent infrastructure built to guarantee the country's wealth has physically trapped it in a single market monopoly, restricting its ability to negotiate on the global stage. That single customer vulnerability became a glaring economic problem when the United States canceled the Keystone XL expansion. Domestic American politics and environmental pushback instantly halted a major growth avenue for Canadian exports. To break out of this bottleneck, Canada pushed forward with the Trans Mountain expansion, a deeply controversial and highly expensive megaproject. Unlike the rest of the network, this pipe runs west. It bypasses American territory completely, cutting straight through the Rocky Mountains to reach the coast of British Columbia. The objective is access. By reaching the Pacific coast, producers can load raw crude onto ocean tankers and ship it to eager Asian markets, allowing Canada to finally sell its product at full global prices instead of accepting the U.S. discount. It is a multi-billion-dollar gamble, functioning as a desperate race to secure global pricing power before the wider energy market pivots away from fossil fuels. The oil sands face intense scrutiny due to high extraction emissions, right as the world accelerates a global push toward net zero targets and mass electrification. Looking at the next 30 years, Major LaHood outlines 4 distinct paths forward. The first 2 keep the focus on crude. Canada can either commit to expanding global pipeline routes or take on the immense financial risk to build up domestic refining capacity. The third option requires stepping away from oil expansion entirely, shifting vast capital into existing domestic advantages, like scaling up massive hydroelectric power systems. The final approach is a hybrid strategy. This involves intentionally using the immense, ongoing revenue generated from current oil exports to aggressively fund and build out a modern renewable network. The choice between maintaining the current pipeline system or redirecting that capital into new infrastructure will determine whether Canada remains a raw resource exporter or evolves into a diversified energy leader.